What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the third album by rapper Gucci Mane. Basically, this project is called Trap-A-Thon, and it came out in the fall of 2007. So basically, this is the first album out of two albums that Gucci Mane dropped in 2007 as far as pitches like that kind of happens. An interesting pitch because I didn't pay attention to this album as much back in the day when it came out. I did mess with like Back to the Trap House from late 2007. It was kind of an interesting concept because originally I thought that this was like a compilation project just because it had some hit singles on here that were on other projects like Pills, Freaky Girls on this particular album twice. There's just some repeat songs on here. Originally, I thought that that was just kind of the concept about it, and there weren't any big name guests. Which basically Gucci Mane took some of his bigger hits off this project, like Pills became I Might Be on like Back to the Trap House, and he put The Game and Shauna on there. And then Freaky Girl wound up having Ludacris and Lil Kim on there on the Back to the Trap House album. But both these songs, there's some cats from like his label, which this out on the album cover says Big Cat Presents, which I think was like Big Cat Records, pitches like that. That was the label that at least the 2006 album Hard to Kill was on, as far as pitches like that kind of go. This is like a similar facet to that particular album, has similar kind of composition to it. Some of the guests on this particular album are more pedestrian. It's not to say that they're poor in terms of like the quality. It's just kind of the concept that they're lesser known and just kind of more in-house kind of affiliated. There's not really any big names on here as far as pitches like that kind of happen. I'd say that the biggest name guest on here would probably be Zaytoven with a couple of beats on here. But apart from that, this is pretty low key. This is a relative, it's kind of modest album for Gucci Mane. But the thing about 2007 Gucci Mane is just the fact that he did manage to get a few charting hits, and this is kind of like a primer of a year for him where he started to blow up on the scene a little bit more. 2008 was definitely like a grind year for me. 2008 was definitely like a grind year for Gucci Mane. He put out a number of mixtapes, including like a Gangsta Girls, which I reviewed last year. It's in the Gucci Mane reviews playlist. I'd say to check that out. I think it was it was called like The Movie. Pretty good project there. There's like some other Gucci Mane really blew up in 2009. It's just been hitting the ground running ever since. But it's just the concept. He had pretty prolific work ethic around this particular time. I want to say that there were like some good mixtapes that came out in 2007 as well. Really, Gucci Mane has over 40 or 50 projects, so there's plenty of these to get to. But this is a hit album that I just never paid attention to back in the day, so I wanted to see what it's about. It's a pretty good project here, just to be able to say that. Definitely has, for the most part, there's 12 songs on this particular product, and out of those 12, I wound up recommending 10. So it's definitely a pretty good concept. Now, the thing about it is, of course, it's just the fact that there are like 3 repeat songs. So out of like the 10 songs I recommend, there's really only 7 new ones that are just not to be found on any other album. So it's just kind of the concept. I would still look after this as a pretty essential Gucci Mane project. So I am going to mildly slash the score just because some of these songs are repeat songs, but I do at least like the concept of the original Freaky Girl being on here as far as pitches like that kind of goes, seeing the original format as to how that was kind of as a single. Some of those type of songs. I did like Pills, even though I Might Be is a pretty good song as well off Back to the Trap House. So it's just a good concept for that. But that's pretty much like the pitch here. So this is just more standard fare for Gucci Mane. It's another quality hit album. I remember back in April when I reviewed Hard to Kill, I remember giving that project like over an 8.5 out of 10. Might have gotten like an 8.75, maybe a 9, something like that. But it's actually a pretty super stellar album. Kind of running out of 2000s Gucci Mane albums to get to. I'm eventually going to have to get to Trap House as far as that particular kind of goes. But what I'd say, there's some quality stuff here. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the singles off this particular album. Like I said, this was a more low-key type project, but still had some good concepts here, just the pitch behind it. This is a little bit bigger. The thing about Gucci Mane is just the fact that Trap House was pretty big, just with like the songs Black Tea and Icy and some of those type ones that at least had some pretty modest type hits. But Hard to Kill kind of treaded back into like more underground rap type territory. It was trying to bring up trap music as far as when it would blow up in like the early 2010s more, or at least Gucci Mane's variation of trap music. But it kind of was more just underground, just the concept and the execution of it. But still pretty good album. Just to say, this particular album is not as trap centric. This one kind of blends like the lines a little bit. It's not quite as much of like the trap music compared to Hard to Kill, which definitely felt like a primer for like 2014 2017 trap. I kind of feel like this particular product just has a lot more just kind of grizzled, kind of just Atlanta Waffle House scene type pitches like that. I just I'd say some Walmart type music, just in a more trap centric sense, just kind of brewing, kind of residential type fare, and just kind of sleazy nightclubs with some Waffle House music kind of thrown in. It's kind of cause just more kind of say it's a more residential type project, just around the neighborhood type fare, but just within the concept of having some glitzy concepts and having money. Of course, it's not so much like broke kind of music as far as just being not kind of being down on your luck. But it's just kind of the concept. This is not quite as flashy and has as much pizzazz as Hard to Kill or like later albums by Gucci Mane. But yeah, Freaky Girl is the lead single. This is one of the few songs off this particular album that has like the full blown nightclub smash appeal off of it. This is definitely one that just had a lot of primer type appeal and was probably one that would have wound up being Gucci Mane, one of Gucci Mane's biggest hits either way. Just had the real pizzazz, pretty much one of the standouts off this particular album. It's not to say this is a bad album, but just in terms of commercial appeal, this is probably the biggest song. This is like a jarring kind of nightclub noise of a song. I'd have to say the OG version of Gucci Smash is definitely a pretty good bop to kind of have. I would definitely feel like this is like an early primer for like some bigger Gucci Mane that would come out later. I'd have to say good concept just getting the original format. If you do like the remix pitches like that, it's a good concept for the original format. Sometimes I like listening to the original just to see them go in a little bit more as far as that particular kind of goes. Good concept, kind of get some of this nightclub type appeal and this overall bounce. Pretty good dance song, I just would say. It's a good twerk song for ladies, pitches like that, an easy kind of kickstart, kind of get things going. Just a good concept. A surprising single I wasn't expecting to be the second single off this product is All Man. Basically, it's like a woozy kind of Days Waffle House Hours outing of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This one reminds me of like OJ the Juice Man and some of his late 2000s, early 2010s days, I definitely have to say. Same kind of jury type appeal, just syrup sipping pitches like that, just real druggy, just the aspect of just being slurred out. It's like a basic kind of slog dredge of a song, I'd have to say, either early just swash kind of mornings or kind of dredge kind of evenings as far as pitches like that kind of have just real woozy song. It's definitely a good one to smoke a few to, I'd have to say. Good concept for that. I do appreciate the appeal. Kind of a trend setting type song because this music kind of popped off a lot more 2008, 2009 and further. I mean, it's not as much nowadays past like probably 2014, 2015, but still pretty good concept kind of get this on here. Did like the kind of days type appeal of this one. This has a little bit of makeshift type appeal about it. I mean, obviously this is kind of the concept. This one has a little bit of like that standard dredge about it. Just if you do have like some commerce, whether you're hungover just from the morning fare, or just got just in a woozy type mode, just got done with work, some pitches like that, getting ready to smoke a bit and have some time. It's just a real relative kind of relief song to kind of get. Yeah, like I was saying, there's 12 songs off this particular album, so there's 16 songs in here, but minus 4 skits and narrows it down to 12. So out of those 12 songs, like I was saying, there's 10 songs I recommend. So the only real 2 songs I don't recommend in some fashion would just be Bad Guys and Two Screws Loose. So to talk about both those, basically Bad Guys kind of had a little bit of an electro type beat. It was kind of a decent production on here as far as that particular kind of went. Just kind of a jazzy type one. I just look after, I don't know, the composition of the song just felt a little bit clumsy. It was just kind of the concept, like the song topic and just the overall format to how it was arranged was just not quite as apple, just the format as to how it particularly kind of went. Felt like it probably should have been, I think with that particular song production, it probably should have been a little bit glitzier, just something with a little bit more pizzazz, just a little bit more gnarled, something more like, Product or Choppa Shop and some of those type ones, or one of the hits off of like Back to Hard to Kill, I'd have to say. And then Two Screws Loose was just kind of a poor type one. That just one kind of had like a ragged type production on there. Just didn't really feel that kinetic as far as that particular kind of went. Just kind of felt like an afterthought and didn't really nail it that well. Didn't really jump off the page. But yeah, talk about some of these songs on here. So basically, Bling Bling is a pretty nice one. It's like a zigzag kind of out and about kind of evening cruiser of a song. I'd have to say in particular, it's like an early bird kind of trap Kickstarter. I'd have to say, and this one gives excitement. This is a pretty good. It's definitely like a gives excitement kind of gem. I'd have to say. Yeah, Bling Bling is just some bustle of a song, in particular, just a little bit of a busybody type one to kind of get just the concept of this real kind of just got done with probably like the standard dredge, just pitched like that kind of a song. Kind of a little bit of the opposite of like, oh man, I'd have to say just the concept of just kind of one that's a primer for some of the more litty type songs like Freaky Girl and What They Do and Choppa Shopping and Product, some of those type ones I'd have to say. But Re-Up is a pretty nice one. It's like an electric kind of trap house party and get to Re-Up is definitely like an electric kind of trap house party and get together pop off of a song I'd have to say in particular. It's definitely like a brewing kind of nightclub noise. I would feel like good concept for that in particular, and just like some vanilla trap commute I'd have to say. So just some of this is just some good product, is figuring out what you're going to do for the evening as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Just more localized type stuff, whether it's just picking up swishers at like a gas station, getting some Crown Royal, some of those type pitches, getting some vodka, some of that type stuff, or just the concept of just heading to like a hole in the wall type nightclub pitches like that just to buy a few shots, or just the concept of just trying to find some chicas, some of that type fair standard outings, just particular concepts of just going breezing through the night, getting some food, some of those type pitches. It's really, I mean, Bling Bling and Re-Up are just two relative ones just within the commerce of it. Just kind of relative nightclub noise, but just real commute, I would also say in particular, just out and about. Spanish Plug is a pretty nice one. It's like a light lick kind of summer evening haze of a song. I'd have to say it's like a smoke a Dutch and kind of dine on some good food type feel about this particular one. It's just some good chill type music. Real, just nice one to kind of get. This is an unexpected one for Gucci Mane. I'd have to say it's a good concept, kind of get some of this type fare, just some real summer haze as far as that particular kind of goes. This really feels beach ready pitches like that, just having a beach house or a penthouse, something like that, some sort of concept. Just really the pitch just behind it, just like some lavish type living as far as that would particular kind of happen. Just really appreciate the concept, just like that thoroughness as far as that would kind of go. What they do is a pretty nice one. This is like a good basic kind of night venue noise. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a very crunk hopper. I would definitely feel like this is like a dance kicker. I'd have to say, and this gives like some mid ringtone kind of vibes about it. I have to suppose. What they do is a little bit more pedestrian than Girl, but it is a pretty good concept. Kind of get some of this type noises to kind of have just some basic kind of outs as far as that particular kind of goes. Just basic kind of dap getting stuff like that. The initial kind of kickoff, rather nice type music as far as that would particularly kind of go. This real vanilla type dance type music. And this is what I talk about with this album being a little bit more pedestrian. It's just kind of the concept. It's an interesting pitch because I think Gucci Mane just at this particular time it was kind of indirect as far as like what was going to happen with him as far as that was kind of happening. Is because he was getting hits, but it was just kind of the concept. He just was not catching on as full blown compared to folks like Young Jock, Young Dro, T.I., and like Jeezy and some of those type folks. Some of those folks were definitely bigger around this particular time, but Gucci Mane was definitely brewing. It's just a good concept. Really, it just felt like he just needed songs like Freaky Girl and Pills and some of those type ones, and like, like wasted some of those type hits that he would get later on. But definitely had the composition about some of these. These are definitely some good buzzers and pitches like that as far as like this nightclub kind of appeal happens. But this with some of the rappers being on here being somewhat pedestrian and just kind of the concept of like the beat selection and just the overall composition of these songs just being more, it's not, I mean, these are not bad songs. It's just kind of the concept. It's just the feel of it. Really, Freaky Girl is like the overhead above head and shoulders real highlight of this particular project. I just would have to say, but it's just kind of it's just the fact that this was kind of like a brewing album. I'd have to say. So Choppa Shopping's another hit. This is like a feral kind of night commerce of a song. I'd have to say is like an out on the town kind of glitzy enjoyment. I would definitely have to suppose it's like some nice venue product, and I'd say this is a pretty good pull up gem. So it's some more commerce type tunes to kind of get. It's like a primer for like some 2010s trap. I'd have to suppose. Good concept. Definitely one of the more glitzy type ones on here. I feel like Re-Up is pretty good for that. I feel like Choppa Shopping's definitely pretty good for that. And I definitely feel like a little bit of bling bling somewhat, but really Choppa Shopping's probably one of the most litty songs on here, I'd have to say. And at least has more pizzazz compared to besides some of the immediate ones like Freaky Girl and Pills and some of those type ones just within the appeal behind it. And oh yeah, basically Spanish Plug is the surprising thing about Spanish Plug is that's actually the second most popular song on this album, apart from Freaky Girl. I'd say it's the basically almost got a million plays, so it's a good concept. But basically, Product is a pretty nice one. It's like a synthy kind of nightclub buzz song, I'd have to say in particular. This one gets things revved pretty well, I'd have to suppose. Definitely a good concept for that. And this one feels different for Gucci Mane as far as that particular feel of it kind of goes, but this is a pretty basic bop. Product is another song that just feels like a promo song and buzz song as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Just the particular concept of it, just a nice kickoff of one to kind of get here. But like I was saying, this doesn't feel as much like a Gucci Mane type song. It really feels like kind of someone that was a little bit more on the come up as far as pitches like that kind of happen. But it is some good stuff. It's just kind of the concept of these. The thing about this particular album by Gucci Mane is just the fact that he went in on this particular project. It is like a pretty serviceable album. The thing about it is I feel like Hard to Kill is a little bit more Atlanta bound, but this is like mildly kind of commercial, just in a more underground type sense, like something that you would have expected from like Tech Nine, just a lot more commercial type appeal of it. It felt like this was kind of one that I can't really think of like an artist that might have done it, but just like Eminem on like his Infinite type days or something like that, or Slim Shady EP type days, is something that relative type pitch, just to be able to say it's just kind of, or it felt like some of these bops were just commercial, but it's just kind of the concept that it's just kind of like the album before the album. I feel like in some senses it kind of almost felt like Gucci Mane's debut, despite the fact that he had charting hits on his 2005 and 2006 albums, more basically Back to the Trap House, and then really his mainstream debut in a lot of ways was State vs. Rager Davis, but this is just kind of a primer album. I just looked at just some good stuff with songs like basically What They Do, Re-Up, Bling Bling, Aw Man, Product, some of these type ones, even Spanish Plug just feel like more underground type tunes just within a relative kind of trying to break above surface type appeal of it, but they are good. It's just kind of the concept that they just feel modest in a lot of ways. Yeah, but that's the product of this album, I'd have to say in particular. So the score I'm going to give this album, me recommending basically 10 songs. Me basically recommending 10 songs out of 12 on here. I'm going to give this album like a 9 out of 10 just because the concept of it is just the fact that 3 of these songs would be found in other projects as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Now, mind you, they do have other rappers on here that were more some of these kind of rappers on like the Big Cat label or just relative kind of more in-house type cats as far as that particular kind of goes. But I look after just being able to say, I do feel like, when these songs were redone on Back to the Trap House, it just had a lot more glitzy type appeal and just overall affability behind it. It's not to say that these are bad versions, it's just kind of the concept is just more less likely as far as full blown the commercial appeal and the bite of them just within how they're going to get spent. So I'd have to say, so it's just kind of concepts of some of these repeat songs. Normally, I would probably give this album like pretty close to a 10 out of 10. I'd probably get like a 9.75 if not for the fact that some of these songs are repeat songs. Just to say that 10 out of 12 is basically pretty damn close to getting a 10 out of 10. But I feel like it's just going to get a 9 just because some of these can be found elsewhere, pitches like that, and they just have more pizzazz on later projects. But the social score, that's kind of tricky. I think I'm going to give the social score like a 9 also, just to say it's kind of tough to kind of discern as to what to relatively do this time with this particular one. It does have some good singles on here. The productions are kind of pedestrian. There are some guests on here, but they just are not quite as big name as far as that particular kind of goes. This album has some nice beats, some good Waffle House kind of commerce and just seedy. This album has some good Waffle House hours type tone and good taste in nightlife as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Just more hole in the wall type vibes and just the appreciation of just got done with work shift. Doesn't have as much work shift as like Back to the Trap House and some of those type ones, but it's just kind of the concept of this real kind of low key, kind of rugged riff raff. It's just kind of a riff raff type project. Just really feels riff raffish and just kind of more here and there. Just kind of the concept of just kind of a night frolic of a project that had to say just some bustle, just in a more riff raff type tone. Just kind of, and when I say riff raff, I just kind of mean mess hall type music. It's the product of this kind of a little bit more rough around the edges, rough draft type tone as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just kind of some early concepts for Gucci Mane here as far as the particular concept is. I mean, the difference between this album just within 3 months is pretty stark. Just the fact that with this particular album, he went from just pedestrian cast, is kind of the concept of like the hit single Freak Girl being that large that he wound up pulling in Trey songs. In just 3 months, Gucci Mane wound up pulling in Trey songs, Lil Kim, Ludacris, The Game, Shauna, folks like that. Just a ton of folks on here. Pimp C in one of his final verses in his lifetime. Rich Boy, some of those type of folks. So his budget really increased pretty quickly. It's just a good concept to see the product of what kind of happened. But this is just kind of an early stages type one. Those just like, hey, this is what Gucci Mane's up to. This is kind of, it's a rough draft type concept as far as Gucci Mane kind of goes. Definitely has some of that seedy nightlife and just pitches like that with like a little bit of wrapping up work shift and getting errands done kind of pitched kind of within that relative fare. It's a very busy kind of hustle. It's a busybody and social type project just within the concept of it. It just doesn't have like the huge hits apart from like probably Freaky Girl, Pills, and a little bit of All Man in there, I'd have to say. That just kind of happens to be a thing, at least in terms of commercial. But some of this for more hardcore type sense and just the concept of knowing about and more in like the if you know type fashion, this does have some good songs to kind of have. But just in terms of some of the ones I think stand out in terms of like a more casual type appeal, it is there, but it's just kind of, it feels more select with it. I'm still going to give it a 9 because of the quality of it. That just happens to be a thing. But I would say some good album cuts would probably be for relative casual appeal would be like Spanish Plug, Choppa Shopping, Products, some of those type ones. But it's just it has the good glitz about it. It's just a little bit just within a more like pedestrian and kind of just more rough draft type feel. So that's the concept. In terms of the future, like Gucci Mane has not put out a project this year. Supposedly he was working on one. I want to say he dropped an album like in October 2023, something like that. I'd have supposed. And the same concept, he dropped like a collaboration album with BG back in December 2023. So it's a relative good pitch to get some of that. But I am going to get to some more Gucci Mane. It's kind of something that's going to happen as time goes along as far as that particular kind of goes. I definitely want to review Trap House from 2005. I want to get to Trap House 3 from 2013, some of those type pitches. The album he did with B Nasty, plus a whole bunch more of his mixtapes. So we're gonna get to some of that. But this is a good album. It's like a buzzing project. It's definitely like a good buzz album, I'd have to say. Has some promo type feel just about it. Just a good concept, like some good seedy nightlife as far as pitches like that kind of goes. Like some good evening work shift.